Are you ready?
Let's go.
Now circling in the neutral zone.
Here's the pitch on the way. 36 yards for the win.
This.
Here comes a big chance. The shot.
Is
this the dagger?
The neutral zone.
Home run. Good.
This is as good as it gets.
The Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca.
Now, here's your host, two-time Paralympian, Brock Richardson.
What's going on? It's time for another edition of The Neutral Zone. I am indeed your host, Brock Richardson. And off the top of the show, before I tell you what's coming up, I just want to congratulate Claire and the women's national para ice hockey team as they finished their competition today, and as we're recording this. Unfortunately, they lost 3-0 to the United States, but they won the rest of their games. So congratulations to Claire and the team for what I would consider probably a success for the women's program and all that. So congratulations to everyone involved there and all of that. Coming up on today's show, in honor of Halloween, we're going to discuss some horror stories as it relates to para athletes and how we grow from these experiences. Plus, we're going to round up some stuff that has gone on in the mainstream sports world. All that coming up, and who knows whatever else. Here comes your headlines.
Neutral Zone headlines.
Recently, the 2024 Birmingham National Wheelchair Tennis Championships were held in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Congratulations to all the players for their hard work and dedication. A special shout out to Anne-Marie Dolinar and Natalia Lanucha on their doubles victory. And a big thank you to head coach Jagath Walakala. Congratulations to all.
The 2024 Ontario Para Annual General Meeting is going to be taking place on Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. It's going to be taking place via Zoom, and to RSVP for this event, please email Doug Hannon at doug@onpara.ca.
The Toronto Raptors 2024-2025 season has begun, and Sportsnet recently has announced that former Toronto Raptor and now Hall of Famer Vince Carter will be a part of their Sportsnet broadcast for 7 select games. Also, as a reminder, on Saturday, November the 2nd, Vince Carter will be retiring his number with the team, and that game will be played against the Sacramento Kings. So tune in for that. And I have a sneaking suspicion that you should tune in earlier than the 7:30 start time on Saturday, because they're suggesting all over Sportsnet that they're going to get things started a bit earlier. So if you're inclined to watch that ceremony, it's best you begin early. And I'm looking forward to it, because it's not too often you see a retirement ceremony of someone that you actually watched. So either that makes me old or intrigued. I'm not sure which one, but we'll go with the intrigued side. That's fine. You guys know which one it is, but I'm going to go with the intrigued side of things. So those are your headlines for this week. If you want to get a hold of us on social media, here's how you can do that.
And welcome back to the Neutral Zone broadcast booth.
Play ball!
We're set to get this bowl game underway. The first pitch is brought to you by Brock Richardson's X account at Neutral Zone BR. First pitch and a strike. Hey gang, why not strike up a chat with Claire Buchanan from the Neutral Zone? Find her on X at Neutral Zone CB. There's a swing of the chopper out to second base, right at Claire as she picks up the ball, throws it over to the first base for a routine play.
Out!
And fans, there's nothing routine about connecting with Cam and Josh from the Neutral Zone at Neutral Zone Cam J and at J Watson 200. And the Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Connect with them at ON Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca. Now that's a winning combination.
So this segment was a conversation we had as a group a few weeks ago. We started talking a little bit about some horror stories that have taken place in parasports and what that's done for us. And originally the whole conversation was that the whole group would be here. However, Claire is competing for Canada, and because it's close to Halloween, I thought we would have this discussion. So for you guys, is there any horror stories that come to mind for your careers, or ones that you've heard or been a part of in other ways? Let's start with Cameron on this one, and then we'll go over to Josh.
For me, probably when I was playing in para ice hockey, the ones that are more horrifying to me is when the team that I was on, we lost badly. So I remember there was a time in Buffalo. Actually, both games were in Buffalo against a senior team. And one time, it wasn't at their regular rink at the University of Buffalo. It was at some other rink that was just across from a river. I don't know what river. I don't remember the name of the rink, but it was a barn. And it was against the Buffalo senior team, and I was in goal. And man, I've never seen so many shots in my life. And I've drank some shots before, but I had a hell of a lot more shots on net than I ever had drinking shots. Man, I think we ended up losing 15-0 or 16-0. And the entire time, it was in our zone. Like, they were just in the offensive zone the entire game. And these black little things called pucks were just coming at me and hitting me left, right, and center. And I must have made, I don't know if it was 100 saves, but it was a hell of a lot of rubber that, hit me. And they still scored 15 goals. Man, that was the most horrifying and probably best workout I've ever had in my life, because I was having to move around so much from post to post. And when you're getting that many shots on nets, you can't help but make a couple of good saves too, just out of fluke, just, on averages. And I remember going in and crying. I was bawling in the dressing room because I felt like I let my team down. And, letting 15 goals in. And I remember Mrs. Ludwig came in and said, Cameron, that was not your fault. You played well. And, the old, you saved a lot of shots and blah, blah. It's a 5-man or 6-man team, and they have to get through 5 other people to get through to you. But man, I must have had nightmares for weeks after that game. And it was the same thing when we went to where the Buffalo Sabres play. Once again, I don't remember the arena, but we played against this damn Buffalo senior team again. And it was on the ice, and it was another 15-0 game. And I'm like, for God's sakes, why can't I stop these people? But we were an intermediate team too. So, and they were like a Paralympic senior team. So maybe that had something to do with it. But because of how hard I am on myself as a person, once again, nightmares for weeks after, and it was just horrifying. And I think after, especially that first game that I talked about, I was ready to quit para ice hockey, because I was just I'm not doing anything here. But of course I didn't. I stayed on for a few more years until my body broke down. But yeah, that's my horror story of just letting in 2 games of 15 goals, and it's all against that damn Buffalo senior team.
Buffalo Sabres sledge hockey will do that to you.
Oh, God.
They got me too.
I'm going to have a nightmare tonight.
I hope not. There's a few different ways I could go with this. I have similar stories to Cameron about being in goal and just deciding at the start of the game that my only goal was to allow less than 10 goals that day. Sometimes that's just all you can plan for. But I think we want to try and broaden things a little bit. So I will talk about our wonderful trip to Garson, Ontario, which is just outside of Sudbury.
Oh, please. I've been waiting for like 2 weeks for this story. I heard a little bit off the air, but I wanted to save it for the show. So do tell me. I'm all ears.
Garson, Ontario is a lovely little town, I must admit. It is absolutely beautiful. If I had gotten to see most of it in daylight, it probably would have been better.
I was going to like, how did you see it? I thought we just saw it in the dark. For God's sake.
We did. But this was a whole... Cam, I thought you were chugging a beer there for a second. I thought it was that bad.
I wish. Yeah, all the horror stories that are coming up here, man.
I know.
Need a beer.
So this particular day, we were playing this team from Sudbury, and I believe we arranged to play both games.
Yes.
I think.
Yep.
And so we got it. No, it couldn't have been both games because we didn't have enough time. Okay, so...
Well, we were supposed to play 2 full games there.
I think we were supposed to play 2 full games, or 2 teams were each supposed to play a game. At any rate,
correct.
There were a bunch of us going up. And so, of course, we all decided that since one of our teammates' parents worked for a bus company, we would rent a bus. Great idea. Then we don't all have to drive how many hours to get to Garson. We got started with the loading process because some of us can walk, some of us are in chairs, and some of us are kind of hybrid. And after loading 3 or 4 people onto the bus, the way I remember it anyway, the lift broke on the bus. And so this was probably 7 o'clock in the morning. And we've got how many hours to get to Garson? So they say, oh, we just have to reset it. It'll be fine. So they try to reset it, and it doesn't work. And they try to reset it, and it doesn't work. So then they get the idea, well, we have to get another bus. Okay, no problem. They bring in another bus, but then the question is, well, how do we get the people on the old bus onto the new bus? At one point, somebody suggested, well, you could put the 2 lifts out and then just have them wheel across.
What?
Yep.
Really?
No.
That was suggested.
not the right thing to do as far as safety protocol goes. But it was a suggestion. So the way I remember it, the lift would go one direction but not the other on the old bus. So I believe they were eventually able to get people off of the bus and onto the new one. But that started the adventure. Then, of course, you're stuck in a bus with how many people, and some want to watch movies, some want to sleep, some just want to be left alone. Hi, goalie, just leave me alone. Let me sit in the back. I'll be fine. So you have the wonderful drive to Garson. Get to Garson, and we get off the bus, and we find out that our ice time starts in like 15 minutes. And, oh, by the way, Garson's a small town, so we literally only have like an hour and a half of ice. That's it. Just barely enough to run the game that we were supposed to be up there for. By the time everybody got changed and on the ice, and I don't think we even warmed up, the game started with barely enough time. And so every stoppage in play ate up more time. And the game was stopped before the 3 periods had been played because there was no more ice time available. And then we all got back on the bus after getting our asses handed to us, quite frankly. Mark can bleep that out if he chooses to. Then we get to all ride home on the bus, and I, the goalie, am at the back of the bus going, why the did I come all the way up here just to get my ass handed to me?
Yeah.
It was a lovely trip, And one of our players was originally from that area, and so
Holy trip.
it was a nice chance for her to go home and see some of her friends who came out to watch her play and all that stuff. So I don't begrudge the trip, but just it was so annoying to get all the way there, not be able to play a full game, and still get absolutely kicked.
Like each team only had half an hour on the ice. And after that half an hour was up, the game just stopped.
Yeah, pretty much. Or it was one team and we only played 2 periods or something. I can't remember.
That's crazy. Like that's, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Sudbury is not a short trip.
No, it's really not. No,
It's like, what, 4 hours?
something like that.
If
So
you
you're
don't
traveling
stop.
for 8 hours only to be on the ice for half an hour.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. That,
Yeah.
I was
The other
there
one
too,
that
and
was-
it was disgraceful.
Yeah. The other one that was interesting was 3 seasons ago, 3, I think. We had this was not a bad experience. This was actually a good one. But there's a little place just outside of Pembroke called Barry's Bay, and they had a sledge hockey team for at least one season. And we got to go play there too. On the bus. Oh, bus trips.
yeah, and did you guys ever break out into the Wheels on the Bus song? Because in my
No.
career, that was always something that would happen, which I was like, why are we doing this? But
No,
you know,
we never broke out into song, but we did argue over what movies we were going to watch. As I recall, on the trip to Barry's Bay, there was one about what were they? The Tuskegee Airmen, I think. I think that was one of them. And then another one was Ford versus Ferrari, which neither one of them were particularly my cup of tea. So I just put my head against the back of the seat and started sawing logs.
I think the one in Sudbury, if I remember correctly, one of the movies was Red Tails.
Oh, that's possible.
Fighter movie, or plane fighter or something.
Yeah, I by the time we were on the bus, I didn't want to be there anymore, so I didn't care. I just put in my headset and listened to music and sat quietly. Tried not to let my opinion be known.
yeah, it's one of those things. It's hard to get like teammates and people in general to agree on a movie that, you know, suits 3 people, let alone a team of, you know,
25.
12 or 25, whatever the number is, right? It's hard to agree on something and to, you know, to be like, this is what we're going to watch. And it's, you know, majority rules would be the easiest way to do it. But yeah, I remember.
I think our team manager was the one who finally said, "This is what we have. This is what we're watching." Oh, okay. Gotcha. Her
Did you
husband
guys
was the
ever
bus
get
driver?
Did you guys ever get stuck in those like either mandatory team building things or where the coaches would be like, let's have a movie night because we've gone this far and we're gonna just do this, and it's like, oh, I can't do this. So I assume you guys have been involved in either the team building or the mandatory movie night. Either of you can.
Cam and I can kind of piggyback this one. We've both had the same hockey coach. And every year there's a tournament in London, Ontario. And I grew up around London. I like London. It's a nice place. But every year, this tournament comes usually in January.
And it's usually a snowstorm too, from what
It's usually an absolute sideways snowstorm. And on, I think it's the second night. He doesn't do it the Friday night, usually, although he really should. But he usually does it on the second night of the tournament, so the Saturday night. And we're usually either barely still in it or well relegated by that point. And he has his annual team building night. We've had to do scavenger hunts around London, which include getting a business card from a police officer. Seeing half a dozen handicapped people coming up to a police officer and asking him for business cards is always interesting and probably very entertaining for someone. I do remember the spaghetti and marshmallow tower. that was one year. Yeah, there's all kinds of different ideas that he has, and my comment to him is always the same. I understand team building is important, but why do we do it at the end of the season? I've never understood that. And his argument is, well, it's the only time I can get you all together in one place where you don't just go home. I'm like, well, okay, that's fair. And I don't know if you remember any more of those, Cam, but those are the two I remember. The scavenger hunts that usually follow the team dinner, and then the teams of 4, and you had to build the tallest tower out of marshmallows and cheap spaghetti.
Yeah, I remember that. And then, like you mentioned, the scavenger hunts. Forgot about the business cards with the cops. But he ended up getting. We had to get condoms as well.
Oh yes.
And so we ended up having to go to this store and buy condoms in order to, complete the scavenger hunt or part of the scavenger hunt. And we're downstairs or outside, like in a snowstorm, or if it wasn't storming, there was plenty of snow out there.
Oh yeah.
For like people in wheelchairs and accessibility. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
But yeah, I remember that. And then the team dinners, which I think is a great idea to end up having those so you can converse with other people and kind of bring your team together. And I understand why he did it in January, because a lot of the times in those days, that was the only tournament I think that we went to.
Other than our own. It still is.
And at our own, people are like going back to their homes. So you can't really, I'll say trap them there to do team building.
Well, in my case, you would have to trap me.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'd stay if it was in Brampton too. But yeah, I remember those. And there was some really funny times there of what people came up with when they had to design certain things when we were just in the hotel and not necessarily going on scavenger hunts and just the different things. So yeah, those are some definitely good memories from London sled hockey tournament.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they are good. I'm thinking in my mind, because for the listener out there, we are having a get together on later in November, and I'm thinking maybe we should do a team building activity just to spice up life a little.
I will find a way to get you back.
Fair enough. No, I think we'll just do the traditional team building, but they are important and they are good. But sometimes coaches can take it a step above, the rest of them. I was gonna say a step too far, but I think that's a little unfair at the same time. For me, I have a couple of stories that I'm gonna share. So the first one that comes to mind is really it's a personal horror story, and I actually can't believe I'm about to tell this story because I was threatened that it was going to come up at my wedding, and it never did, thank goodness. But it's going to come out now. Before I made the national team at the age of 19, they had an Espoir team, which for those that might not be familiar, that's like the B national team. And so they were sending the B national team to this event with the national program, and I for some reason Team Ontario wanted me to come to this particular event because it was close to nationals, and they said, oh, let's take them all to Vienna, and we have some money, and let's do it. So here I was with Team Ontario. I was bitter about not going with the Espoir team, but they gave the whole song and dance about like, oh, it'd be good because you're going to be on the national team and you should go with Team Ontario and what have you. So I was with Tammy and Adam and myself. They also came with Team Ontario, and we were in Vienna, And back when this particular situation happened, we were allowed one timeout per team. And so you could pick the timeout between either the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth end. You could pick your timeout. So the game's going along, and we're 1 point either way, both sides, and we're playing Holland, and we're playing them, and it's 1 point. We're down 1 point going into the final end, and the coach calls a timeout, and he literally has a message. Like, it's a one-person message. I'm delivering it. This is what I want you to know. This is what it is. And the message went like this. He said, Brock, you're in the final bocce box, so you get the jack, and you're going to place the jack where we talked about, and you're going to throw the first ball. He says, I need you to nail the jack. I need you to, like, have a perfect ball. So all the side of the white ball is covered. Won't be able to see it. That's what I need you to do. And I'm thinking, oh my God, talk about pressure. So he finishes the rest of the timeout and go into the box. And my father was my sport assistant at the time. And I called for the jack ball. I put the jack ball out and called for the first ball, and I was like, okay, this is the shot. This is the one I have to make. And so I took the ball and I put it up and I threw the ball, and I started, and I've never done this before this point, and I've never done it since. I started yelling at the bocce ball. Okay, like literally yelling at it, going, "Get on the jack! Get on the jack! Get on the jack!" And I'm yelling at it, and I'm just willing this thing to get on the jack. Well, it gets on the jack. Everybody celebrates. The coach is having a grand old time on the bench there, and I had a fist bump going, which I have video of it, but I'd like to get rid of this video because I would love to get rid of it. I got the fist pump going, and my dad's behind me clapping, and all of a sudden, and I could not control this, and my teammates argue with me still to this day that I could not control this. All of a sudden, I start sobbing on the court, and I could hear my father clapping, and then it's like he's clapping, but it slows down, and it's like, is he really crying on the court? Like, is this really happening right at this moment in time? So we play the end through, and my ball is still on the jack, and they throw the first ball, and they're still not scoring. The second ball, they're still not scoring. Third, fourth, fifth, they're still not scoring. Well, this one athlete has one ball left, and we called him the one ball bandit, because if he could make a shot, he was going to make it the one time, and that was that.
No.
So this guy lines up the shot. He points his finger, and he's lining up with his finger, and whole thing. He picks up the jack, and we're all looking and thinking, okay, we're going to be able to score some points, and we're going to be able to this. And we're all having nonverbal communication. Well, doesn't he take the ball and just knock mine away from the jack? And mine was a perfect ball. He knocks mine away from the jack and puts his right on top of it. So we went from having 5 balls left because I had only thrown the one ball to being like, oh my God, this is going to happen to, never mind, it's not. And to this day, I'm thinking to myself, I cried for that to happen. Yeah, that's the horror story that I still think of to this day. The other one that I'll share is now.
Did you end up winning?
No. They ended up getting that 1 point from the last ball, and they won by 2 because they were leading by 1, and then he scored. The second point there. It was brutal. Mm-hmm. It still haunts me to this day. How did you do that? Yeah.
Were you using the red balls or the blue balls?
It would have had to have been the blue balls because I was in box 6, so that would be blue because they go box 1 is red, 2 is blue, 3 is red, 4 is blue, 5 is red, 6, and I was with the final jack ball, so they were with the blue balls.
Blame it on the blue balls.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, so it still haunts me to this day. The other one that actually tops this one was at the Paralympic Games, and we got our pools ahead of the time, as you do when you compete at events. You know who you're going to play and when, and we finally got the opportunity to play Thailand at the Paralympic Games, and they were one of the number one teams, and we were hyped up to play them, and we were playing red, Cameron, for your future question, and and I was, at that time, I was in the first box, so I'm the first person throwing the jack, and I threw the jack. I had the perfect first ball. It took Thailand one ball to move my ball off the jack, so they scored something like 2 or 3 points the first end. Then we played the second end. They scored a bunch more points. Then it was our jack again in the third end, and it was Tammy McLeod who had the third jack, and she placed the jack, put a perfect ball, and again, one shot from Thailand, removed it, and on they went and played, scored a bunch of points. Then we got to our last teammate, who happened to be Adam at the time, and Adam, again, perfect ball, one shot. And at the end of the game, the coach just looks at us and goes, well, you couldn't do much better because you had 3 perfect balls, and they scored. The score was something like 12 to 1 or 2. The score was not indicative of how we played. But those are the frustrating moments. You feel like you're just like, I'm playing so well, and just the other team plays, and that's the side of it, is that like there is another team playing the game, Cameron, and that like you or Josh. Go ahead. There is another team playing as well that you have to take into account.
Well, you've reminded me of another story, Brock. There was a Cruisers Cup sledge hockey, para ice hockey tournament a number of years ago. One of the first few that we did, I think. And my team was a C-level team. We're basically a recreational team. And in this tournament, we're playing the usual suspects. The Londons, the Windsors, the different teams that we play. Kawartha, Peterborough, whomever. And then we all look and we realize there's a team Russia. And I will tell you, it was really cool to open the tournament playing against this team. But when they said they were a C team, they had no idea what C meant. This was basically their junior Paralympic team. I have never felt like a pylon more in my life. And the only saving grace was that I was not the goalie that day. Our friend Brett Wills was the goalie in that tournament. And so he's the one that got to get lit up. But I was on the ice for most of the shifts, and they would start in their own end and they'd go around everybody and then score. Like there was just, we played really well together that day, and there was just nothing we could do. So I can totally appreciate your story about playing Thailand, because I was there against Russia.
It's brutal, sports sometimes, and as I was mentioning too, and I think it's good. I think you all have to recognize the fact that there is another team out there in any given sport that really wants to win, Cameron, and I think that's sometimes a hard pill to swallow. Is that like we're not the only ones out on the field of playing.
No, absolutely not. There's always another team, and on any given day or any given Sunday, as they say in football, anybody can be beat. So even a C team can beat a Paralympic team or the Russian team on any given day, or Thailand or anybody else. So it just depends on the day and how lucky you get with the puck going in the net in this particular case.
Yeah, it's wild how sports can happen. And to tie this in as like a whole segment, I'm gonna do the whole, the teacher thing of like, what do we learn? Because I think we can learn stuff out of it. So even though we've had bad experiences, are there positives looking back on your career, Josh, that you can take from these? Or am I just like, okay, you're reaching for something? But are there positives you can take from this? Start with Josh and we'll move straight over to Cameron.
Well, there's always things you can learn, I think. It's whether you can learn or appreciate the learning moment as it's happening. In the game against Russia, I could certainly recognize that, okay, if I want to get to a certain level of para ice hockey, I have to start playing like these guys do. I have to start playing a lot better. I have to get in better shape. And so you see where you are and where you have to get to. In the case of the bus story, I guess you could say that you learn patience because you had to have a lot of patience. But there's always something to learn, I think.
Man, sometimes when you lose 15-0, you just gotta throw away that game, throw away the video, throw away everything, and just forget about it. That's all you can do. And realize that the other team was a better team. And if you play them 100 times, they're probably going to beat you 99 out of 100. Yeah, if you want to be, Mr. Positive, you can always try to get things out of it to say, okay, well, now we know how to lose 15-0 and we know how that feels like. So we're going to, try to improve to get better. But no, with like the two experiences of para ice hockey today, they were just a better team. And there's, because of people's abilities, they're never going to be at that level, unfortunately, because of their abilities. And some people, that's just the way it is. So you just forget about that game and move on to the next one. Because if you fret too much about one game that you lose badly or you get really upset at yourself, trust me, I know this from both work and through playing sports. It can lead on to worse games afterwards if it lingers inside your head. So forget about it.
Yeah, there really is something to be said about, flushing it. And I don't always think there's things you can take from it. I mean, both of the stories that I talked about, there's still stories that I remember that I am okay talking about now. But it's like, you tell me 3 weeks later from the moment of like, tell me how you feel, and what, you're still bitter and you're still grinding your teeth and just like, don't talk to me about it and don't make me go through this. But coaches would always want to hear, what did we learn from situations? And sometimes you're just like, I don't want to learn something from it. I just want to be mad. I want to be angry. I want to be sad, whatever the situation is, and in the whole thing.
And when somebody like in Boccia, when somebody makes a good shot like that, you can't do anything about it. Like, you can't learn anything. They just made a good shot. So you have to, give them the golf clap and say, you made a really good shot.
The games that I'm sure you guys can contest to this as well, the games that are more frustrating are not the games where you know that the team just simply was better than you, but it's the ones where you beat yourselves, where you're like, oh, but we are better than this and we could have done better. And those are the ones that in my career that I think, man, I would have liked to have that back, because I know that I could have played better. I know that I could have done better, but sometimes you just got to tip your cap to the other team and do that. Anything else on horror stories, or shall we move on?
I'm just surprised you didn't tell us about your trip to Newfoundland with your team, or your trip in, was it Austria where something broke down?
Yeah, I think I did the Austria one a couple of weeks ago, but the one in Newfoundland, that was a whole other experience, and I'll tell that one briefly. But we were traveling to Newfoundland for the 2018 Boccia National Championships, and my now wife, but at that time then girlfriend, she really wanted to do some traveling, and so she and I together, she did more of the convincing than I, but she was like, let's go to national championships. Let's do it. So I said, okay, let's get up and do the provincial championships. And I won. I had no business winning that provincial championships. If you talk to Lance Kreiderman, who we've had on the program, he'll tell you I had no business winning that provincial championship, but I did. So yeah, I won. And I told my father, who was the coach at the time, I went off the court at the provincial championships, and I said, I guess you got no choice but to bring me now, because he was like, maybe I won't, because, you know, if you're just going for fun, and that's not what national championships is about. But then I won the event, so he had no choice with the bylaws and selection of the team. It was the person who won provincial championships automatically got to go. So that was cool for me. But we got to go to Newfoundland for this tournament. And we usually left on a Tuesday. Then you had like a sort of a rest, but a meeting day on the Wednesday. Then you competed on the Thursday through the Sunday. Well, we were leaving on the Tuesday, and there was threats of this windstorm that was going through Newfoundland at the time. And so we went to Toronto, and we went to Park and Fly, and we got transported to the terminal, and then we got up to the counter, and they said, okay, your flight's delayed. All right, nothing new. Our flight's delayed. We waited for hours and hours and hours. And then they finally came out and said, actually, it's being canceled till tomorrow. So we all went back to my parents' house. We had dinner, and the team got hotels. I wasn't lucky enough to get hotels because OCPSA was like, you live with your dad, so you can stay there. Fine,
so
no
you
problem.
can go home.
So we went home and we did all that, stayed over the night, and then we went back to the airport the next day. So now this is the Wednesday. We went back to the airport on the Wednesday, and got there and they said, oh, your flight's delayed. So, okay, here we go again. We're waiting hours and hours and hours and hours. Waited, and then, oh, no, your flight's canceled. Okay. So then we stayed over at my parents' house again. Get up the Thursday. Now we're supposed to be competing. The Thursday morning. And so we get up the next morning, and my dad, in his infinite wisdom, decided that instead of staying in the queue with the rest of the team, he found a flight online that was quote unquote guaranteed to leave Toronto. And so he thought, I'm going to take myself out of the queue, and I'm going to go with my wife to Newfoundland, and then I'll be there, not knowing that he would be leaving behind the rest of the team. So we get to the airport, we get all our baggage, and they said, yep, this is going through, it'll be good. Well, my dad left 3 or 4 hours before the rest of the team. Well, then I become the de facto leader of this team, and my teammates come through the security line, and I was the first one to go, and the security guy goes, excuse me, sir, we need to pierce your bocce balls. And I said, excuse me? You're going to pierce my bocce balls? He's like, yeah, because we need to know if there's powder in them for, some explosives. And I'm thinking, well, no, you can't do that, because if you do that, then I'm down a ball and this isn't good. They're expensive and whatever. And he's like, oh, can we just do one? And I'm like, again, no, you can't. And I said, by the way, there's about 6 people coming behind me with the same set of equipment. So we finally got through, and then one of my teammates got searched because he had what turned out to be hand sanitizer on his hands, which set off the alarms. It was a mess. I was cursing my father entirely, but we got there, and it was another one of those scenarios where it's like, we get there and they're like, oh, you get to play and you get to do this, and it was fun, but we never really got to do any touring, which is the demise of my wife today. She's like, I just wish we got a day of touring and a day. And I'm like, welcome to the world of parasports. It just doesn't work that way. It's the airport, the bus, and the venue. That's what you get to see when you travel. So,
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, those are definitely some of our horror stories. Let's hear from our sponsor at this time in the show.
The Neutral Zone is sponsored by the Ontario Para Network. Their focus on the growth and development of wheelchair basketball, tennis, and rugby in Ontario.
So guys, now that we had a little bit of a therapeutic session, we have about 15 minutes left in the podcast, and I came across something when putting together this script, and I came across this, and it reads this way: 22 Canadians fill NBA rosters, making it the second most represented country in the league. Obviously, the United States is the country that comes first. What do you guys make of this? Let's start with Cameron on this one.
Quite simply, it's the Vince Carter effect. I think it started with him, and a lot of people really liked Vince because he was a half man, half amazing, and that's kind of when the boom started, with getting a lot of Canadians interested in basketball. And I think they were, but there was just more, because of the Raptors, there was more structure. There were more basketball courts. There were some academies. I think one's in Oakville, if I am not mistaken, where they were homing their skills. Then they went down to the States to go with the colleges and get full scholarships. And they just put the work in. And I think, definitely two in a row, I believe, for the drafts. Weren't Canadians chosen number one overall like 2 years in a row?
Yes, I believe so.
So I think it all comes from the Vince Carter effect, because when Vince Carter came, they ended up having good basketball teams too and making the playoffs. And really before that, they weren't in a lot of playoffs, if any at all. If I remember correctly, it was so long ago. But I think it's all to do with Vince Carter and having somebody to look up to in Canada on a Canadian team. And the explosion happened from there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I also just think that you had exposure to the sport once the Raptors and the Vancouver Grizzlies entered the league. So I think that in itself played a factor. You had more kids being exposed to basketball. Basketball's a bit cheaper to get into. You only really need a pair of shoes and a ball. You don't need all of the equipment that goes along with hockey or lacrosse or these other sports, football. So I think all of that has led to this, but definitely Vince did have an effect as we get ready to retire his number. I don't know that the teams were that successful during his time. I know they were more successful than they had been when they were a brand new expansion team, but that still wasn't saying much. But definitely just kids being able to watch and be able to see him and realize where he came from. They, I think, saw that, well, if he can do it, so can I. So I think that's a big factor in it.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of what you're saying. I think the Raptors certainly as an organization had an impact, but I would say that Vince Carter led the charge, and I would also say that Vince Carter winning the slam dunk contest when he did, I think that's a big deal as well, because that a lot of people watch the dunk competition because it's a big deal at the All-Star break, and you're going to notice the Raptor, and he plays for the Raptors, and so that in and of itself helps you as well. it's hard for me to, compartmentalize the fact that the Raptors have been around for 30 years, as this is their 30th season. And all of a sudden, as I watched the whole bunch of promos of, the Raptors in the 30th season, it was like, now it's making sense why we're retiring Vince Carter's number, not because of anything Vince did, but just simply because it looks good that 30th year we're retiring a number. And maybe I'm late to the party on this and people are going, duh. Yeah, I agree with you on that. It is duh. But it is real. And I think when you hit milestones, organizations want to do something to commemorate the team, commemorate the organization. And for me, it's like, what better time than now to put Vince Carter and his number up in the rafters. And I think that's cool. I do think that, Sportsnet capitalized on some gains there, saying, we'll let you do 8 total games. One of them was the opening night, and we'll do that. I think Sportsnet, does a better job with their broadcasts, and I don't mean to hate on TSN, but there's a certain someone that I'm not a fan of, and neither is somebody on this panel either.
Darn right.
I just think that they do, and they bring Alvin Williams, and listening to Alvin and Vince talk through the game, and then his name's escaping me at the moment, but the lead Matt Devlin, the lead broadcaster, listening to them go back and forth is something good. And I think TSN capitalized on good stuff there for sure. Sportsnet, capitalized on good stuff there, because basketball, let's be fair, when the team is not doing well, and I don't think there's much great expectation for this team this year, but do you want to have something to look forward to? I would have liked to have seen the Raptors push the retirement ceremony down the page a little bit, but they chose.
But there's a reason they didn't.
Oh, is there? Enlighten me. I'm not sure what the reason is.
So the reason that they did it when they did is because the Brooklyn Nets are going to retire his number as well, and the Raptors, being his first team, wanted to retire his number before the Nets retired his number.
Okay. Yes, that would make sense. I then agree with why the Raptors did what they did, because if anyone's going to retire his number, it should be the Raptors first, and not the Brooklyn Nets. I'm fine if the Brooklyn Nets want to retire it, but it needs to be the Raptors first. Who is the first Canadian player that you think of when you just, like, a current Canadian player? Let's get that down. Who's the first Canadian player that you think of on any team that automatically you think of when somebody says, name me a Canadian player? Josh?
Kelly Olynyk.
I can't remember the guy's name, but when I started watching basketball, he was on Chicago during the Michael Jordan years, and there was a Canadian on the team then. Longley? Was it Luke Longley? I forget. I don't remember what his name was, but that's the guy I think of when I think of a Canadian player. Leo Rautins, I believe he was in the NBA as well.
Rick Fox is the guy that comes along if you want to go back a ways. Rick Fox was in LA.
He's another guy that I remember watching growing up.
For me, it's Jamal Murray. When I think of Canadian player that's, making a difference, I think of the Denver Nuggets and Jamal Murray. I think he's made an impact. I have trouble. I'm gonna say similarly, but similarly to Vince Carter. I think a lot of the kids now that Vince has been removed and his age is getting along, I think kids can sort of grab on to Jamal Murray and what he does, and he brought the Larry O'Brien Trophy just to downtown Kitchener. Why I scheduled to do anything on that day, I'm not sure, because I would have liked to have been a part of that, but it was cool to know that he's around. So for me, that's who I think of as well. And I think just overall, just Canada basketball has grown. I mean, they first went to the Olympics for the first time in a long time this past Olympic Games, and I think that's brought a lot to Canada basketball and what they've done. I think the result isn't what they wanted, obviously, but the fact that they were able to qualify, I think, is a big step. So I think basketball is in good shape moving forward here in Canada.
And the guy from the Chicago Bulls that I was thinking of was Bill Wennington. He was a Canadian basketball player. So that's when I was growing up and watching the Chicago Bulls win some championships. It was Bill Wennington that was the Canadian player, and they always talked about him being Canadian. So that's kind of the first exposure I knew of a basketball player that was Canadian.
Yeah, very good times for sure. Let's chat quickly about the crazy World Series that's taking place. It's been a good World Series. As we record this, it is 2-0 for the LA Dodgers. It was tied, and then Freddie Freeman hit that crazy home run, which was one of those moments that I think when you look back in 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be like, where were you when, especially if you're a Dodgers fan? But that was a total bomb that pushed them over the edge. And New York just really hasn't been able to bounce back from that, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Freddie Freeman did his best impression of Kirk Gibson, wonky ankle and all. Because if you're old enough to remember Kirk Gibson, he was injured badly at the time that he hit his home run for the Dodgers, and Freddie Freeman was injured with a bad ankle when he hit his. I've really enjoyed this World Series. It's been very exciting. I think the reason the Dodgers have done what they've done is because, quite frankly, they've found a way to shut down Judge and Stanton. If you can keep the 2 home run hitters off the board, then I think you stand a very good chance of winning, because I believe the Dodgers have a better pitching staff than the Yankees. Personal opinion. The Yankees can certainly outslug people if their hitters get hot, but the way Judge especially has been just waving at pitches that are nowhere close tells me that he's really not in a good place when it comes to hitting. Now, he could come out in Game 3 and be completely dialed in and mash 3 home runs and score 6 runs himself. I mean, who knows? But right now, if things continue the way they're going to, I'm very excited for the likes of Kevin Kiermaier, Teoscar Hernandez, and Freddie Freeman. Freddie being, at least by birth, Canadian.
It's been a pretty intense World Series, Cameron, but fun to watch as well.
Oh, it's been fantastic. The drama in Game 1. Oh, my. Like, getting that grand slam to win it in the 10th inning as well for the comeback win. Oh, my. That was like just theater. And then the second game, Teoscar Hernandez, former Toronto Blue Jay, where home runs weren't wanted. They wanted to play more of the small ball game and defense, and so they got rid of Teoscar Hernandez. Stupidest decision ever. But he had a 3-run homer for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, good for him and good for LA. I hope they win it. But to me, it's just the evil empire from the East playing the evil empire from the West. So if they could both lose, that'd be great, but that's never going to happen. So,
and at least we have a couple of people for the Dodgers that we can legitimately cheer for, I think.
Yeah, and Kiermaier, I don't think he's even on the World Series roster.
He's not, but he's still part of the team. He
100%.
So he'll still get a ring if they win.
100%. And I hope he gets it because he's a nice guy.
Oh, for sure. I was glad he was on our side for a change. I watched him in Tampa for so many years robbing us. It was nice to have him on our side.
For a couple
Painful,
of years,
some of the robbings that he would do with Tampa. Yeah, I mean, a bit of a Captain Obvious statement here, obviously, but Los Angeles Dodgers have put themselves in a real good position, because even if New York wins all 3 in in their home park, the Dodgers still have a really, really good chance of getting things done here. Obviously, if you ask the Dodgers, they're like, no, we're gonna take it in 4, and that's not what I want to see. By the way, as much as I despise the New York Yankees, I'm like, I don't want to see a sweep of one side or the other. I would like to, drag this out a bit and see where things go. But yeah, it's
get it over in 4 games.
Yeah. Oh,
It's October, almost November.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like my baseball. I just like my baseball.
There was.
Yes. As of this recording, he will play in Game 3, and I've never seen an entire stadium go silent like we did with the Dodger Stadium. It was like, oh my God, that's our superstar. What happens now? But Dave Roberts confirmed that yes, he will play in Game 3, which I know some people would like to see Shohei not win a World Series, but I think the game is better with him participating, whether he's participating as a pitcher or
Babe Ruth-like numbers. He deserves to win a World Series.
50-50, win it.
He's doing things that no one's ever seen because we're all too young.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, speak for yourself.
Oh, did you watch Babe Ruth? Because I sure didn't.
Well, I was born in the 1800s, some people say, so you never know.
Fair.
That's the first time that we can all say we're all too young for something we've talked about, by the way. Usually somebody on this panel has been around for something we've chatted about. But yeah, it's been a good World Series. Surprisingly, just on a total left turn note as we close, surprisingly, the Winnipeg Jets are undefeated. Like, if anybody told me that the Winnipeg Jets would be undefeated starting the season, I would have said, you're nuts. Josh and Cameron, quick thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets?
Haven't really gotten to see very much of them, but happy for them. Like, if anybody deserves to have an undefeated team, I think it's Winnipeg. Those fans have endured a lot in multiple iterations of this team. I think the goaltender's hot. I think the Stars are doing what they need to do, and they're capitalizing on teams that are going through rough patches right now. So good for them. Keep it up.
Yeah. Kudos to them. They're getting the wins. So you gotta salute them on that. And they're certainly not going to go 82-0. Like all teams, they'll go through a bit of a funk. And that's just the way sports is. So they're doing good right now. So you might as well keep riding the wave while you can.
I agree with everything you guys said. That is the end of our show for this week. I would like to thank Cam Jenkins and Josh Watson. I'd also like to thank our technical producer, Mark Aflalo. Stay tuned for next week because you just never know what happens when you enter the neutral zone. Be safe, be well.
The Neutral Zone is brought to you by the Ontario Para Network. Connect with them at ON Para Network. Follow them online at onpara.ca. Now that's a winning combination.